Now I want to talk about some different cuttings that you need to be able to create on your property for bedding areas. Now, with cutting presents risk. We use our chaps, safety glasses, helmet, and really critical. But so this is outside of what a logger would do. That's the least amount of risk to you. Having a logger come in and harvest certain areas where you want to hold deer. I always recommend with a logger, and that's separate about, from the 3 cuttings we're going to talk about and show you out here. It's one of our best bedding areas on the property. They're full of rubs. This actually led to where Jen shot Ocho, a 5-year-old this year. He lived right in here. So we want to show you this, but with a logger, I look at there's areas that you select cut when you have hardwoods. There's areas you leave alone if you're accessing to blow your scent. The worst thing you do is take 40 acres and cut the whole thing. Even select cut the whole thing. Do anything to that property all the same, meaning this is the timber management plan. We just do the whole thing. That's called a monoculture. Doesn't matter if it creates different cuttings across your property. If you're doing the same thing across the entire property, then it's a monoculture. Monoculture of habitat, everything's the same. And then you gotta wait 20 years to do it again, or 30 or 15, whatever the rotation is. So I like coming in pockets of areas, and this is one of our intensely managed bedding areas. And then we have areas of hardwoods we've identified where a logger will take care of. We have areas on the outside of the property that we would leave as mature timber for access, and those are some of those logging cuts. But when it comes to creating bedding areas on your own property with your own cutting, there's 3 main cuttings I'd like to talk about. And in this area right here, this area is about 2 acres, and you can see the mess we have behind us. Deer are all over this. There's so much food in here. And I'll talk about at the end how we can continually maintain this in the future and what steps we can do to make sure this always is a bedding area. Again, logging scale, this is an area where we'd have a clear cut, timber management plan, and then on the outside, mature timber where we could access through it, count on not spooking deer. And this is the type of area where we'll kind of hit that edge where there'd be timber management and bedding. We hunt up there, not down here. So we hunt this bedding area, but up on the outside here where we can blow our scent up towards the top and not spook deer. Ultimately, in this 2 acres, you need to get sunlight to it. So I'm looking towards that southerly sky, which you can see right behind me. You can see that big opening where he took down all those canopy trees. There's another big hole over here. And those are all those holes where we can plan on getting sunlight in here. And that's the first step. So that first cutting is actually coming in here to your canopy trees, whether they're hardwood or aspen, and attacking those first. Now I can admit that even though we take that a step further down here, those are our most important cuttings, getting that hardwood canopy down and getting sunlight to a 2 acre area like this. That's going to produce the most effect no matter what you do. Now, I'm not in favor of, if you have poor quality timber down here that typically wouldn't fall under a logging plan, like box elder, maybe even some of the hickory, some basswood. I don't like poisoning those ever, because those also, if they're poor quality timber, they're usually high quality wildlife habitat. You're going to get the most shoots and sprouts and cover and regen for food and cover for the critters, deer, grouse, rabbits, everything. And so first though, you have to have that sunlight coming in. A lot of people do that in reverse. I've been to so many properties where people had paid for it, where they'd have hinge cuts, and people would hinge cut, and then it's down in the shade, and 4 years later it's just a bunch of dead sticks on the ground that someone paid thousands of dollars to cut, and they're doing nothing. It was a waste of the resource. So to capitalize on that resource, you take the timber down first, cut it, harvest it, whatever you do. In our case, we're cutting, and a lot of that's aspen down here, most of the big stuff. And you can even see we left a white oak like this. This white oak is standing. It's a good tree. It's producing a good canopy up above. So now we can get full sunlight into it. It increases mass production, and it's right in the middle of our bedding area. We left a cluster of white oaks right over here too. So you can see this up. See all that white oak over there, that cluster, this single beautiful tree right here we're letting grow. But first of all, we had to get those canopies down. So we were focusing on that aspen. That aspen is 7,000 shoots per acre. And you can see a lot of these aspen shoots. This is 3 years worth of growth. Pretty cool when you're responsible for creating this growth. And then you come in here and there's old rubs and new rubs on a lot of these shoots that you created. These are 14-foot high whips. So pretty cool, producing these trees. They're all over. There's rubs, a lot of rubs in this location. So That's that first cut, those big canopy cuts, getting sunlight down to the ground. And if you just stopped and did nothing else, you're probably going to accomplish 70–80% of your goal. Then you come in here and you have these smaller mid-sized trees. And you can see this one. It's a hinge cut, and you can see the growth coming out the side. It's all browsed. You look up on this right here, that hinge cut hickory, you see the growth coming up, and you're starting to get some of that side cover. So I like offering some of these hinge cuts, and they're random. So we're taking some of these random trees, cutting them, mostly hardwoods, and we're hinging them, and we're getting that regeneration. You come into some of these areas like that one over there, that's a complete cut, not a hinge cut. So you're looking at, if I hinge cut, where's it going? Can I hinge cut this, put it into an area where it's not going to matter? Complete cut a shagbark hickory like that, where it's getting growth out the side. You can see complete cuts in here of aspen. You always want to complete cut those, not hinge cut them. We're hinge cutting more the hardwoods. So those are those small scattered trees. That's step 2. And then you get into areas like this. You can see these hinge cuts behind me, where we got into an area of mostly hickory where we could hinge cut these. And I'm not trying to create a bedding canopy. What I'm actually doing is putting those all into a pile so that deer can actually move all the way around it, and it protects a certain amount of regen on the inside. So even if you had a lot of deer and they're going to be, your cuttings are going to be prone to overbrowsing, then that type of area, you can see all the growth in there that's not exposed to browsing pressure. And so then what you end up having is you have areas of total regen, in this case aspen, coming up from that canopy cutting and getting rid of those big canopy trees, a lot of them aspen. Then you have those middle-aged trees where you're cutting, some hinging, some open. You're getting growth out of those stumps and off the sides of the hinge cuts. And then we make these hinge cut pockets like this, and you're really protecting different types of habitat there that are not exposed to browsing pressure. So what ends up happening is you have clear-cut areas where you get thousands of shoots per acre of aspen, and then you get areas of horizontal cover mixed in that aren't prohibiting deer movement through here, whether it's a hinge cut or you're just completely dropping a medium-sized tree and you're getting different types of regen growing off of there. And then you're getting these pockets in here. Each one of those creates different levels of diversity and types of cut and growth within this same cutting right here. So we're taking a 2-acre area here, and we're not even doing the same thing across the 2 acres. Then you get up to these upper areas where you have timber management. That's where a forester would hit. And then those outside areas, again, where you're doing nothing to, so that, that you actually have areas you can access through and blow your scent into. And that, to me, is a complete timber management plan. You might take 70% of your timber on a good hardwood stand property, manage that for long-term timber production, and then you might take 10–15%, create bedding area pockets like this in ideal spots. This happens to be a flat. We can face it to the south. It's interior where we want to hold deer and not spook them, and they can always be in here. And then you have those outside areas where you're cutting little to none at all so that you can access and blow your scent into. Those might account for 10–15%. So that, to me, is true diversity, where you can manage the hardwoods, but then you're specifically managing clear-cut areas and non-cut areas where you can blow your scent. And that's that variety we like to see. We're using every tool in the toolbox. Hinge cutting is a viable tool. If anyone says it's not, they don't have enough experience to tell otherwise. It's a tool, but at the same time, we recommend it 15% of the time, less than 20% with all the clients we see, hundreds a year. We might recommend that if we saw 300 clients in a given year, we literally might recommend that 40–50 of those properties have hinge cutting on at the very most. Timber harvest is always great. Again, that's that first step. And then long-term management of this. When we get into these aspen whips right here, when these aspen whips, they're going to start growing out. You can see some of the side sprouts starting to take place. Deer can easily browse on these if you want. You see some of the tips gone. You see some of the starters right here. Well, they've eaten them down to the sides. So good browse right at deer level. At some point, these will get up into that 4 to 5 inch pole timber. And I would say that would be in the next 5 to 10 years. At that time, we can go into large areas like this where it's more pure aspen from those clear cuts. We can mow it all down with the forestry mulcher, not go into the lateral root system in the dirt. And then we can get regen on these aspen shoots again. We always have to be mindful that canopy trees aren't filling in, but then we can come in here and pocket cut within here these aspen regen areas and continue the life of this bedding area. One of the steps we recommend to clients a lot, if they want to convert this timber and really add more diversity, is you go into some of these tops of down trees that aren't growing, meaning non-hinge cut, and you add conifers, mostly white pine, white spruce in the north because they're shade tolerant, and you add those 5 or 6 in this top, 10 or 12 over in this top, so that you can diversify the area. White pine, white spruce, they're protected from browsing, and that further diversifies what you have on the property. So you have hardwoods that don't have conifers, uncut, timber managed, pockets like this, and so it really does create true diversity on a property, and that's what we love to do. And this is obviously, we have it flanked by big food plot system over there, switchgrass border on the outside, diversity pockets for pheasants, turkey nesting and poults, edge cover, grouse back here in these areas. We have rabbits all over the place, grouse, pheasants, turkey nesting, and really those are the indicator species of good whitetail habitat. It's funny how when you work on whitetail habitat, do a lot of this stuff, how those other wildlife species come to play. So I hope you can take to heart some of these cuttings you could have on your own property, those 3, outside of a timber plan. And this a lot of work, more risk in cutting when you're doing it yourself and having a logger do it. So if you're competent, experienced, or you have a friend that is, get them out on your property, and I hope you can enjoy some of these cuts. There's still time to do so this year. We love to cut when the sap is flowing. March, we're getting a big snowstorm blizzard tonight, so we got to get out of the woods. As long as these leaves aren't budding out and starting leaf, then we'll cut up till that time. Late summer dormancy is a great time. August, late July, August to cut, early September. Then we're out of the woods. And on a final note, we're down here right in the heart of one of our favorite bedding areas. Look at the regeneration off this one right down here too, pretty cool. But we're right down here in the heart of the bedding area. There's pellets everywhere, rubs everywhere. Take a look at the growth on this cherry right here, pretty dang awesome. But could care less about spooking deer. We're in early March, and it doesn't matter if we spook deer in a location like this, because they will forgive us within a month, 3 weeks of now, and it's certainly well outside the hunting season. We enjoy getting down in the woods everywhere on our property this time of year, and outside of maybe losing some antlers because a deer run to another property, we're enjoying our timber all the time. I think getting out here and creating some bedding areas is one more way to do that, and we hope you are taking advantage of this great time of year to cut some great bedding areas on your own land. Everyone, thanks for watching to the end of the video. I really want you to check out whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, Pure Wildlife Blends. There's so much we have to offer you. If you never buy anything from us or hire us to come to your land, that's okay. We're still going to be putting out all this free content to try to help you out. I want to put a smile on your face. I want you to have a great hunt. But from our food plot seed blends, to books, to web classes, to hiring us, we have lots of stuff to offer on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com and Pure Wildlife Blends. Make sure you check it out. The links are in the description.